discussed who you are. I've met you through the internet, but I don't know much about you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about who you are and a little bit of your background?
Yeah, I'm Eric Trombley, best known for being a member of Anthem. You may have seen me before that in a band called 10 to 1, but that was pretty short-lived. It only lasted about a year. 10 to 1 disbanded, and I think it was literally the next day, this guy named Keith called me and said that he was starting a band called Anthem and was interested if I maybe wanted to come and audition. He had found me on a band mix and saw that I was a guitarist and a keyboardist, and he thought that would be a good fit. So
Nice.
through many trials and tribulations, we got our foundation of the band, which continued to change over time and so on. So
Now, how long was Anthem a band?
as far as actively gigging, probably about 2014, 2015.
Okay. 10, 11 years, something like that?
Up until about 2021.
Okay.
And then I had moved to South Dakota. So
What drove that?
my wife's family is from South Dakota.
Okay.
And we always planned on retiring there. But right at the start of the Great Plague in 2020, just some things came up that made that be the right time to buy a house there and make our gradual transition to South Dakota. I still had we had gigs were canceled because of the situation in 2020. So I actually stayed in Minnesota that was the plan, is I was going to stay in Minnesota for a year because I knew that the gig, eventually things would lighten up. We'd get back to gigging. We still had lots of gigs on the book. And my youngest daughter, I think she was like 20 or 19 at the time, not a toddler or anything. But she wanted to stay in Rogers with me. So my wife and oldest daughter went to South Dakota. My daughter was going to university there, which is one of the catalysts for us.
Sure.
Us moving there. So I continued to do gigs with the band while I was living in Minnesota. Then my daughter and I moved, but we still had gigs on the books through the end, pretty much through the fall. And I had moved out there in July of 2021. So yeah, for those last gigs, I was driving 4 hours away and doing a gig and getting a hotel room and driving 4 hours back to South Dakota the next day.
Well, I'm sure the band appreciated that professionalism and dedication to it.
Oh yeah.
That's not everybody's gonna, pony up and be the professional they need to be.
Yeah.
In that case, so.
And I enjoyed it. I mean, those were just some of the best times with Anthem, and such a good group of guys, and
Well, tell me some stories about that. I mean, let's unpack that a little bit. You have some great times. Tell me about some of those great times. Like what?
Yeah, well, I can give you a little more backstory on Anthem. So Keith had asked me to come and audition, and it was him, a drummer, and another guitarist. So I was joining. I was going to be kind of a keyboardist / second guitarist. So we needed a bassist. And before we could find a bassist, the other guitarist left. So then we had to find a guitarist and a bassist, which we eventually did. And work hard learning all your songs and everything like that. And then we had a gig at it was Pickle Park at the time, and then it became Route 47.
Huh?
Yeah. So that was our first official gig. We were opening up for Old Voltage. It's a AC/DC tribute band.
Yeah.
So we opened up for them, and that was great. That went great. The funny story with that gig was we were starting with Separate Ways by Journey, of course. And get through the intro, and we just get to start the first verse, right? And the chords are like dun dun dun, and it's like, where are the vocals? And like I look over and Keith's like trying to figure out what's going on. It's like the whole band, we just keep doing dun dun dun. And I'm like, great, this is our first gig. This is how things are starting out. This is awesome. But eventually Keith realized he had the switch turned off on the microphone, and he came in with the vocals. And actually the funny thing was that, throughout after that, we went through some various lineup changes. Stun came and auditioned for us when we were looking for a bassist at one time. And he said that he saw that video and he saw how professional the rest of the band was. Like the vocals not coming in, like didn't train wreck us or anything. We just kind of kept playing the chord progression until
building the suspense.
Building the suspense as Keith sorted out what was wrong with the microphone. But he said that, that was one of the influencing factors of him coming to audition with us, was that he could see that we were, we may have been young as far as a band goes, but we were still, carried ourselves professionally.
Ours outstanding, man.
Yeah. So, but Stun joining was really the start of us getting our classic lineup. So it had been me, Keith, and then Dale Bukowski on drums, and Mike Costello on guitar. And we needed a bassist, and so we had put the call out, and John came and auditioned and like immediately got it. And we had a gig. I think it was like Rockfest was coming up in like
not just a
month.
Gig, but a gig.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he had it was like a month or 6 weeks to learn all of our songs so that we could still do Rockfest. And he did it. He's a consummate professional. So of course he nailed it. But
and Anthem is covers?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 80s arena rock. So we were doing.
Nice. I think I may have seen you guys play years ago, but yeah, just.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we did a lot of Journey, Def Leppard, Night Ranger, and things like that. We tried to keep things. Not every song didn't have to have keyboards in it. We tried to keep as many keyboard songs as we could. Obviously we wanted to do some AC/DC and stuff. And I would sit out on some songs where there was no keyboards and there was no reason to have 3 guitars up on stage. I would just sit those out, which I didn't mind, right? It was a team effort. It wasn't about trying to showcase or highlight any one person in particular. It was a team effort and so on. But yeah, so we got Stun, and then Wes joined us shortly after, and he had actually came and seen us play, and he's like, "Oh, I want to be in that band." So we were looking for a guitarist, and he came and auditioned, and he got that. He got the position, and that was the start of like what I would call the classic Anthem lineup. Like things started happening after that. I mean, we were playing gigs before then, certainly. But I remember like scraping to try and find gigs, and like once we got the classic lineup there and everything just gelled, and all of a sudden, we wanted to play like 2-3 times a month. We didn't want to do it. We all had, full-time jobs and like that. So, we would end up, turning down gigs occasionally because it's like, well, we would do 4 gigs in a month if we really, they were really, good gigs and stuff. But yeah, we tried to keep it around 2 or 3. We had our venues that we played a lot, like the Doghouse and Route 47. We played Serums quite a bit early on. So yeah.
Nice, man.
Yeah. So we had a good time. We were usually in pretty good agreement on the songs that we were playing. I always found that to be kind of a challenge, right? You always end up playing on some songs you don't really like all that much, but I just considered that part of the job, if you will. Right?
Sure.
I always said, or always say, you have to suffer for your art, and so sometimes that meant learning. I'm trying to think of what song. Oh, "Runaway" by Bon Jovi. It was just one I just did not.
It's not your jam.
Did not enjoy playing it. So yeah, but yeah. And then you counter that with stuff that you really enjoy, like the Night Ranger stuff. I really like playing keyboards on. Feels Like the First Time was another one of my favorites to play. So yeah, it's all good. So yeah, very good memories. Probably one of our moments where we were really starting to feel like we were okay, like we're really getting some traction here is we opened up for Hairball at the Medina Entertainment Center on 55. And that was pretty cool. That was kind of a goal of ours. It's we really want to open up for Hairball, and so we did that. We ended up doing that 3 times.
I was going to say, was that the first of many?
It was yeah. Actually, so that was the first, and then we had kind of in 2021 we had kind of wrapped things up, but then in 2023 we went out and we did a handful of more gigs in the summer and the fall, and we actually opened up for Hairball twice during that time in 2023. One of the fun things was we played Rockin' Rogers, and we opened up for Hairball, and I lived in Rogers.
Yeah.
So I had always wanted to play there, and they had actually asked us to play there before.
That might have been where I saw you guys there.
But we had turned them down. We had to turn them down in the past because we had other things scheduled. So, but the funny thing was we didn't play at Rockin' Rogers until I had moved out of Rogers and moved to South Dakota. I was really looking forward to that gig that was, a mile down the road.
Right.
Kind of a thing. But that was good. That was our first show when we kind of came back in 2023. So I was getting up on stage in front of a lot of people, and we hadn't done a full on gig for 2 years. So, but that was great. I remember it going really, really well, having a lot of fun. Surprise guests showed up in front, some family of mine that I had no idea were going to be there and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was good. That was one of my wife will ask me sometimes, what were the best shows that you ever did? And right. So I always say that one. And we would also play up in, St. Cloud at Pioneer Place, which is
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yep. So it's for those who don't know, it's a theater. It's 200 seats,
yep.
Reserved seating though, kind of a deal. So I think we played there 3 times.
And you like that venue?
Really did. Yeah.
Okay.
It was nice. It was a good place for me to invite family, right? Because, we weren't playing until, 1:30 kind of a thing, right? We were starting earlier, doing an early evening show. So it was kind of easier for some of the family to come and see us there. And then, I don't think there was any age restrictions at those shows either. So, but yeah, no, we always like playing there. And, I think that in 2021, I think that was the last show we played before we put things on hold. And I think it was also the last show that we played in 2023 when that was really our last show. So yeah, nice when you can close it out at some place
that you really like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got fond memories there already.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, if I can ask, in 2023, what was the reason? I mean, obviously, I know you're living really far away. And it's probably had some emphasis, but can you get into that?
Yeah, sure. It was really fan demand. Anthem had a really hardcore group of fans. And as soon as we had told them, it's I'm moving to South Dakota, and after we get through the fall gigs, I'm gonna, that's kind of gonna be it. Well, then, there was just a constant request, are you guys gonna get back together? Or are you guys gonna do some more shows? You guys should do some more shows this summer. And, so we didn't that first summer. But then, I don't know, they were suggesting it, and, it's like, well, if we can land some decent gigs, then, I was game, and it turned out everybody was game. So, yeah. So we ended up doing, it was like 5 shows we did between the summer and the fall. Like I said, 2 of them were opening up for Hairball, and but they were a lot of fun. I was glad we could get back together and relive some of that, the fun and the energy and stuff from before. So,
but at that point, when you were like thinking about getting back together, was it always limited? It was always just like, hey, let's just do a couple,
yes.
and then hang up our hat.
Yeah. No, there was no plans then.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is because, I'm 4 hours away, but above and beyond that, you've got the winters. So, like, having a gig and me having to get to Minnesota, but we're getting dumped
the middle
on
of a
with
blizzard.
snow. It just wasn't going to be feasible. So, yeah, I know Stun always would tease me even on stage sometimes about breaking up the band, and that certainly wasn't my intention. I really felt bad, but you got to do what you got to do for yourself and your family and stuff. So, and I would have been just fine if they would have found a replacement for me. I had no issues at all with those guys going on, but I just kind of decided, maybe that was a good time to wrap things up.
Everybody probably had other projects going and other things that maybe they wanted to spend time on.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. But as far as like my origin story, I was way into music as a kid. I mean, I had the little record player, like you lift the lid up on it and it's got the speaker that's this big. It was like, the Kitty record player. And I was, The Night Chicago Died by Paper Lace was the first 45 I ever bought. And the second one was Fox on the Run by Sweet. And I think the third one was Ballroom Blitz by Sweet. And this is like, first grade, second grade. So,
wow.
I mean,
you were really early.
I was still listening to like, Snoopy and the Red Baron and stuff like that. But no,
you just knew there was something in this other thing going on here. That's cool.
Yeah. And then, I was in 3rd grade and I learned about Kiss, and that was it. I was like huge Kiss fan. I got Destroyer, the Destroyer vinyl album for Christmas when I was in 5th grade from my godparents, and boy, that just kind of cemented me as a lifelong Kiss fan. And as I got older, got into Def Leppard, and I actually first started playing guitar when I was 16. And people who come and see Anthem probably say, oh, look, that keyboardist plays a little guitar. But the opposite is actually true. It's like I didn't start seriously practicing keyboards until a couple of years before I got in with Anthem. So I was always much more comfortable playing guitar on stage than keyboards. I would always tell the lightmen when we were playing, I'm like, do not kill the lights on me when I'm playing keyboards. Like, and if there's a ballad, absolutely do not kill the lights on me. I said, I don't care if I'm lit at all when I'm playing guitar, because I don't need to see. But keyboards. And eventually I did buy a couple of, little lights that I could have on, and then I didn't have to worry about what any of the lighting guys were doing. But yeah, so kind of learn keyboards along the way. I was mostly self-taught. When I was starting with Anthem, I did take some piano lessons, but I told the instructor, I said, I don't want to learn to read music, and I want to bring in the things that I want to learn. I don't want you to like give me a repertoire. So I would literally go in with songs that I was learning for Anthem and ask, what's the best way, what's the best fingering for this? And it was like, Sammy Hagar and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
And did it work?
It did. It did. Because one of the things that I didn't realize learning keyboards coming from the world of guitar is you're not always going to necessarily play a chord with the same fingering. And it kind of depends where you're going and where you're coming from. So that was one of the big things that I had to learn was, to do that. It's like, playing these 3 chords. It's like, well, no, that's actually not the best way to do it. Or now you can use this inversion and then you're not moving as much. So it was
interesting
learning that. Yeah, it was like a whole different world for me. But I loved it. One of the parts of playing keyboards that I really liked was like the sound design aspect of it. I had just started with Anthem. We didn't even have the full band rounded out. And he goes, if you want to like, buy some patches or something for the songs that we're doing. And I'm like, no, actually, usually it doesn't really work that way. You can sometimes do that. But it's like, no, I'm just going to have to like figure this out and design this stuff myself. And that was one of the things that the guys in the band really appreciated, because as a band, we always strive to reproduce the songs as accurately to the studio version as possible.
Okay.
And part of that for me was creating those keyboard patches that sounded exactly like the albums. So like they'd bring up a new song that they wanted to do, okay, next practice, let's have this ready. And I'm like, well, do you want the patches done or do you want me to be able to play it? Because I'm not going to be able to get both done in 1 week, because it can take a lot of time, because you're layering different sounds and you're making your own sounds out of like,
interesting
filters.
And so that's kind of what you're up to, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's kind of like that engineering aspect.
Sure.
I liked, coming up with little MIDI sequences for some songs. There was a part in Rockin' America, like right before the 2 verses, there's a little like a quick descending keyboard part. And it's just like I just programmed it with MIDI. And then I could just trigger it from one key to hit. But, kind of got to figure out how to do that. Turn Me Loose, you got that big, it holds a sustained chord, and then it goes, and it does this chromatic walk up to 2 octaves. But it's a chord. It's not just one note. So like figuring out how to get a chord to do a chromatic walk all the way up 2 octaves, bit of a head scratcher. You're like, okay, that's going to be like a portamento or a glissando, but it's not a smooth slide. It's more, it's more of a chromatic slide. And then you just start digging into your keyboard and hope that it can do it. So,
I mean, that's one way to be self-taught, right? You're really getting quite a bit deeper than I think even many people that play keyboard get into. So
yeah, but that was, that's one of the more enjoyable aspects of it.
Is that right?
Me. Yeah. Yeah. But getting back to guitar, I started taking lessons when I was 16, and the first thing that my guitar instructor was having me learn was Red Barchetta by Rush. And I'm like, Rush? Well, I know Tom Sawyer. I don't really care for that song all that much. But I borrowed the Moving Pictures cassette from a friend of mine, so I could hear what this Red Barchetta song sounded like. And that was, that was like a game changer. And I was a huge, huge Rush fan after that. And I think it's pretty safe to say that for guitar, for keyboards, and for bass, I did a lot of my learning right from Rush. It was just playing Rush songs and getting some of those chops under my fingers. So
sure, I mean, that's a high bar to hit. So
yeah, exactly. But yeah, then after Rush, I started getting more into progressive rock, like Queensryche and Dream Theater. Images and Words by Dream Theater was another life-changing album. I listened to that, and I didn't think that they were playing things that I didn't think were humanly possible. And I'm not exaggerating. The Kevin Moore was their keyboardist at the time, and on the song Metropolis, he doubles the guitar solo. And I was absolutely floored. I never could have imagined that a keyboardist could double one of John Petrucci's solos. So yeah, big fan of theirs. I went to school in Hutchinson Vocational College for audio and electronics, right? So I've kind of got that live sound studio background, and it was a 2-year course, and I ended up getting in a band with some of the members of my class, and we had played 1 or 2 gigs, but it was my first introduction to having to learn a bunch of songs from memory. I was in that band with Dave Farber. If anybody has used Farber Sound for any PA rentals or anything, that's Dave that owns that. Not a plug, just a trivia fact.
Fair enough.
And then after that, I really wasn't in any kind of a band. I mean, I would just sit and play my guitar by myself at home. Ended up becoming friends with a few guys in probably around 2010, 2012. No, this would have been before then. This would have been like 2006 or so. Became friends with a couple of guys, and they were multi-instrumentalists, and so we'd just get together Friday nights and we'd drink whiskey and eat pizza and jam. And one of the guys was a huge Foo Fighters fan, so I learned tons of Foo Fighters songs. And again, not the biggest fan, but that's fine. It's just fun getting together.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, then after a little while, I joined 10 to 1 and then ended up in Anthem. But so I don't have the the pedigree that someone like Stun does, where long history of being in bands. I was kind of a late bloomer if you look at my career with Anthem. But it was fun. It was at a good time for me. My kids were a little older, so I had a little bit more time to commit myself to something like that. And heck, you came to some of our gigs, you probably saw my kids selling merchandise or my wife selling merchandise. But
it's good that they're supportive and into it with you.
Oh, it was so much fun, like bringing my girls to a show and them just kind of being part of the scene. And except I was occupied during the shows, and so I had told them, I'm like, anybody starts getting weird with you, I'm like, there's stage mom. And I pointed to Dale, our drummer, his wife. I'm like, anything goes weird, you need to go to someone. That's your person. So yeah, like I said, my wife would come and some nights and sell merchandise. We did really well on our merchandise, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah. I designed almost all of it and had it made for the shows. I'm actually in product marketing for my day job.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I handled kind of the merchandise aspect of it, the Facebook postings and the website and all of that. So got to make use of some of my day skills on that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Well, so after Anthem wrapped up in, trying to think, it was 2021 after Anthem wrapped up. I actually took 4 semesters of classical piano instruction at the university, which was,
now you're learning how to read music.
No,
Really?
I took the class as a non-degree seeking community member. And I was able to convince the professor that I didn't really want learning music to be part of it. And he was gracious enough to actually allow that. And there was actually other parts of the class too. There was, there would be a listening exercise that you then had to write about. There were concerts you needed to attend. And the professor actually told me, he goes, you can do as much or as little of those as you want. But I actually did. I did all the assignments and things like that, and tried hard to, get a good grade, even though I wasn't doing it for any credit or anything. But
Sure.
He said he had never had a community member do that. So I kind of wanted to set a good example so that if future ones did, he could say, well, that Eric, he couldn't read music, but he
sure
tried hard. He sure did show up.
Well, very good, man.
Yeah. So that was good because that got me into, learning a bit more about proper technique, gained me a huge appreciation for, classical pianists and, learning more about, expression and tempo and things like that I hadn't necessarily given a lot of thought to. He was always on my case about dynamics, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, here's the reason I don't use any dynamics is because I play keyboards in a band. And the sound guy, he doesn't want me to have any dynamics. He wants me to be at that level the entire song. I said, I turn dynamics off on most of my patches. He's like, well, if you're here, you're going to learn some dynamics. So, but that was really, really fun. And I ended up having to stop taking those lessons. That was, during the Great Plague, and work had slowed down, but kind of when I was wrapping up my fourth semester, work was ramping back up. And for me, that can mean travel and things like that. So I ended up having to stop with the piano lessons. And then I kind of played video games for the next year and a half for my entertainment.
So you don't have any, ambitions right now of doing something again?
I do want to do some recording.
Okay.
But just
recording as in you're writing and recording?
doing writing and recording with our drummer, the Anthem drummer, Dale. But I just reached a point where after, it was 13, 14 years, it's like it started to feel like a second full-time job.
Yeah.
And I just kind of took a break for a while. But now I've been picking the guitar up and playing some Molly Hatchet and some Camelot or progressive rock band, more kind of like a power metal band. So I've been playing some of that, kind of getting back into it.
But you're not sure where it's going to go yet. You're not holding any specific goals, just kind of letting it flow?
Not yet, just kind of letting it flow.
Okay, fair enough.
When we first moved to Brookings, I had asked around, I'm like, are there any like venues here that have music? Oh yeah, Skinner's up there. They'll have a live band sometimes. So I go into Skinner's, I'm like looking around and I went up to the bartender, I'm like, I heard you guys will have live music. He goes, yeah. I'm like, where do they play? He goes, oh, usually we just move the pool table and then set them up in the corner. I'm like, okay, Anthem won't be doing any gigs here. Because I will say that we were so fortunate. I mean, I know other musicians, friends of mine across the United States, and there's some good guys and talented guitarists and stuff in bands, and they're playing in the corner of a VFW with a tree stand with 4 lights on it. And I just feel that we were just really blessed. I mean, almost all of our gigs there was house lights, house sound, nice stages. I mean, one of the things that I found kind of rewarding, when I was a kid, I never would have guessed that I would have, played on the same stages as, Sweet, but they played the Medina Medina Entertainment Center, and we played the Medina Entertainment Center, or the same stages as Queensryche. They played, there was a casino that they had played at, and we ended up playing at that casino. We were actually the first band, St. Michael, Minnesota. They call it the Outdoor Amphitheater series.
Yep.
Anthem was the first band to play.
Is that right?
For the very first year that they did that. We were the first band to ever play on that stage.
Interesting.
And then a couple years later, the band members and a whole bunch of our fans, we went and saw Night Ranger there. And we all wore Anthem shirts. So like we're walking through, and the ticket people are like, we've seen so many of those shirts come through.
It's good that your fans are still pretty loyal and out there ready for you to have another reunion tour.
Yeah, well, one of them schedules a yearly dinner for the band to get together and stuff
awesome.
And some of the classic fans that have always came to see us and stuff. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I better wrap this thing up because I do have some other guests coming in about 15 minutes or so. So I always like to wrap it up with the same exact question. You might be prepared for this if you watch any episodes, but who do you recommend should be next on the podcast?
Oh, in Anthem, I always call Dale my wingman. And I tried to always be set up next to him, and we just had this rhythm down. He knew where I needed a hi-hat. I would throw on a click track for the intro of some songs where there was just keys, so he would know when to come in, and we kind of just really had this groove.
Nice.
So I would definitely recommend Dale. I think he's in River Falls, Wisconsin, but I think he'd like to do it a lot.
Okay. Dale was his last name.
Bukowski was his last name.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Oh,
or is that the guy you thought of?
That's the first one that came to mind.
That's awesome, man.
There's always, Mike Costello from Anthem. They both, have more of a history as far as being in various Twin Cities bands and stuff. But I loved Mike. I was always felt so comfortable when I was on stage playing. If I was playing guitar, towards the end, I was just playing acoustic. But for a while there, Wes would step off stage and I'd play like a half a dozen of our songs on electric. And I was just always giddy standing up front playing with Mike.
So. Nice. Yeah, you definitely feel a lot of solid camaraderie in that band. And the level of professionalism sounds like it's just, something that most bands should aspire to.
That was if I can make one more final comment here.
Sure.
One of the things that we strive for is we never looked at our gigs as it's just a bar gig. Part of our practice was not just running through songs. It was eliminating any dead time between songs. And, Keith would have his crowd banter and stuff, but I always tried to keep that in check. I'm like, people don't come here to listen to us talk. I'm like, transitions between songs got to be short. We can't stand there looking around at each other, wondering if we're ready. If you start the next song, and if something's not right and you're not able to, you just got to walk over to whoever does start that song and say, whatever, I broke a string, or, my freaking G string's way out of tune. Hold on. Right. But otherwise, it's just you finish a song, you start the next song. You finish that song, you start the next song. And we really treated those as, as close to a big stadium performance as we could.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Well, it's been great having you on.
It's an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's nice that you're here in town. Great to be able to hear your stories. So thanks for sharing it with us.
Yeah. Yep. I kind of came up through a different path, but you can still be in your late 40s and start up a new project.
Believe it or not, you're not the only one. There's a couple of other very, very well, very impressive musicians out here that I've seen that didn't start till they were 40 or 50.
Yep.
It's interesting. So
there's
no right path, just an inspired path.
You just need the drive and determination, and if you want it to happen bad enough, it'll happen. But it's kind of true.
How about one more bonus question? How about your kids? Have you inspired them into music at all?
My oldest played flute, which actually I used to play flute as well when I was younger, post high school, but pre Anthem. So she played flute and saxophone in high school and jazz ensemble at in her high school, and then a little bit into college. My youngest tried learning guitar. I thought she was doing great, but just kind of wasn't for her, and that's just the way it is. But nope, never tried to force it too hard on them. But they just thought having a dad that they could, go and see up on stage and playing songs, they did think that was pretty cool. And there's nothing,
Papa's a rock star.
Nothing better than having your kids admire you and want to hang out with you.
Absolutely. Well, cool, man. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks so much for doing this, brother.
Yeah, you bet.
Hey there, Minnesota music family. If I haven't personally reached out to you yet, consider this your 100% official invitation to join me on the Minnesota Music Note. I'm Will McLeod, co-founder of the podcast crew here in beautiful Robbinsdale, host of the show, and the guy behind the kit for the band Hits and the Misses. I started this podcast because I want to get to know the people who make our scene tick. Whether you're fronting a band, spinning hip-hop, running sound, booking shows, running shows, or teaching the next generation of talent, your story belongs here. We've had everyone from videographers to festival organizers on the mic, and we're just getting started. It doesn't matter if you're playing arenas or just making magic in your basement. If you're part of the Minnesota music community, I want to chat. Slide into my DMs or hit the email below, and let's hang out and talk shop.